What is going on, all of you lovely people? Hey, if you're watching this video on demand, you know exactly how this works. I'm going to throw a couple of things at you, then we're just going to get into it. Don't forget to check me out at twitter.com/Lore Reloaded. If you want to hang out and play some games with me, come to twitch.tv/Lore Reloaded. We have a grand old time. It is both myself and, of course, you'll hear Mini Lore ever so often as she sometimes likes to talk. So let's just go ahead and say hello to the people and just talk. Just have a conversation. Feel it, people. We got Park Maxwell in the house. What's going on with you? Says most likely a bit of both when it comes to who's toxic, the writers or the fans. We got Nathan Norman. Have you shaved, old boy? Why, in fact, I have. Thank you for noticing. I like to look good for you. Because you look like a baby. You know, I get that a lot. We got Ora Takawa Atinga. Always a pleasure. Adris Ahmed, haven't seen you in a while, buddy. Hope you're doing well. So, the question on the table today that I'm curious on your opinion comes from oh, look at this. We are Anti-Tracker. Look at Anti-Tracker right here, who's apparently the Mirror Lore. Anti-Tracker, always a pleasure to have you on. I'm assuming your show will be coming up in about an hour or more. But anyway, so let's just get into it. Let's break this down. Are the writers toxic, or is it the fan base? Now, originally, this is something that has been on my mind that I've been considering for a while. But I also saw Eckhart's Ladder doing some tweets about the hate on Star Wars. And in fact, I even got into a bit of a scuffle with Negotiator, who has a pretty good channel. I like his channel. Let me get his channel real quick. I don't think he's a fan of me at the moment, but let me get his channel right now, which is The Negotiator. Well, his YouTube is The Negotiator. So yeah, right there. He's also at The Negotiator YT. Here's an interesting conundrum. It seems like we have both sides getting so angry at each other, and it doesn't matter what fan base you choose, whether it's Star Trek, whether it's Star Wars, The Expanse, what else? Carbon. I mean, any fan base ultimately will get to a point where there's a semi-toxicity to it. And both sides will point and say, look how horrific that side is. Just look how bad it is. Look what they're doing. They're sexist. They're misogynists. Or on the opposite side, say, look, they're SJWs. They just want to destroy all men. It gets to a point where both sides points to the other and says, look how bad they are, not realizing that both sides are basically in the wrong. And it becomes cyclical. So let's talk about Star Wars for a moment, because that's the hot topic, right? With Kathleen Kennedy. I have seen some people point at the Anti-Tracker and say, look, he's a misogynist. He just continually attacks women. He does it for the views and things of that nature. Could not, in my opinion, be further from the truth, because I sincerely don't think Anti-Tracker is any of those things. I think he's just giving his opinion. But there are so many people who are wanting views, and so many people who legitimately just don't like women or don't like SJWs, that they just start piling everyone together, right? Nathan Norman says, it's the writers. The fans know the ins and outs of a franchise. They have studied and watched countless hours to fully breathe in the world that they love. If the writers cared, then there would be no hate, says Nathan Norman. Anti-Tracker, who tries to position it that he got his own emoji when really he is stealing intellectual property. You know what is a non-toxic fan base? Gundam. I bet you if I go into the fan base of Gundam, that we'll find a ton of, shall we say, toxicity, if it were. By the way, 30 people watching, only 6 thumbs up? What's up with that? With Anti-Tracker here, I at least expect like 10 of his sock accounts to have me thumb down. Come on, people. But what are your thoughts on this? So in Star Wars, there is a lot of hate. A lot of people not liking Kathleen Kennedy. A lot of people saying that she needs to be fired. And a lot of people going off that we now have movies that are primarily with protagonists that are female. and just going off on that specific tangent. I'd be very curious what your thoughts are, what my fan base is. One of the conversations I was having with Negotiator on Twitter was that we should be calling out our audience if they're quote-unquote misogynist or they're saying things. I don't necessarily know that I agree with that, but I'd be curious your thoughts on it. Nathan Norman says, ask Gundam fans about Turn A Gundam and watch their grenade pop off. You want to say hi?
Yeah.
Hold on, let's see if they can see you. They can't see you. They can't see you. Now they can see you.
And I want to say that maybe I'm getting my own channel. It's Lord Destroyer, so...
Well, we haven't created it yet, but yes.
But soon it'll be.
But soon. Okay.
If we get...
We'll get it, baby. Go sit down. Go Play-Doh.
I'm watching videos, not Play-Doh, Dad.
I didn't say Play-Doh. I said go play or go do what you want. There's nothing sexist about it. She earned it. I imagine Disney will fire her if she does not turn profits around after Solo. You know, here's my thing when it comes to Kathleen Kennedy that concerns me for her. The next movie is probably not going to do all that well, and it may not even be her fault. And if they fire her for that, that's unfortunate in my opinion. I'm not saying that I'm a huge fan of Kathleen Kennedy necessarily. What I am saying is that it's going to take a couple of movies, in my opinion, to turn this boat around. Now, you guys may disagree, but that is honestly my opinion. Expanse wisdom, humans always seek to define who is in their tribe and who isn't. That is absolutely true. I completely believe you are either in or you are out. We like to think and have this progressive mindset, but it's simply not so. You are either in or you are out when it comes to tribes. Now, we can accept someone not being in our tribe, but if they aren't in enough tribes that we're in, we won't associate with them. It's just human nature. Anti-Trekker says, honestly, there's a toxic environment. The simple fact is the poor writing of the films has bred the toxic response. So let me hit this off of you, Anti-Trekker, and I think that you and me will probably be on the same page here. I think that what we're seeing in movies and what we're seeing in lore in the fan audience is really reflective of ultimately of what we're seeing in politics and the way our entire society is right now. You're either with me or against me. You're with the tribe or you're not. You're a bad person or you believe what I believe in. And that started, for me at least, it looked like it started in politics, probably religion a little bit. Well, religion definitely. And it has slowly soaked into everything else. And so that's why we're now seeing it as a part of this whole fandom. You know, these people are good people or they're not, you know? But I'm curious with your thoughts on that, just Anti-Trekker or anyone who wants to talk about it. Hey, we got Travis in the house. If you're wondering why Travis's name is green and he's got a little icon next to his name, he is a sponsor of the lore. If you're on a computer and you see sponsor up there, you can become a sponsor. It helps out the channel immensely. Bird of Prey 5, always fun to have you here, buddy. You haven't been in a live show in a while. I'm glad to see you. Unknown User says, in 2003, how would you have responded if someone told you the prequels would not be the worst Star Wars movies? In 2003, how would you have responded if someone told you the prequels would have not been the worst Star Wars movies? You know, Jeremy Weldon becoming a lore master, thank you so much. You know, here's the interesting piece to that. I forget who said it, but during the time of Star Wars, the prequels, it was getting just a ton of adulation. A lot of people liked the prequels. I didn't necessarily, I wasn't a huge fan of them, but I didn't hate them. I still don't hate them. I think they're the weakest. But I don't know. I don't even know that, I still might consider them the worst. I don't know. That's really hard. Because when you look at The Last Jedi, if you look at it as a Star Wars movie, I think it's horrific because of everything it does undo. I agree with that. But I don't know. I'll have to think about it. Gundam Turn A wasn't a bad series, but it was a Western anime fan films. Please behave, people. A YouTube moderator. I have the power to suspend your accounts. Okay. Never really had a problem with the prequels. They told backstory and was fine with me. My problem with the prequels... my problem with the prequels was that they were a bit boring, to be honest. There wasn't anything technically wrong with the first movie, episode 1. It just wasn't very intriguing. It wasn't interesting to me. If I wanted to watch politics, I would just turn on politics. They should have done more with it. Star Wars is meant to be this fantastical story. It's meant to be about Jedi. It's meant to be kind of what Anti-Trekker says, good versus evil. It's meant to be this epic adventure. Unlike Anti-Trekker, I don't mind them becoming more gray and making you question what is good and what is evil, but it still needs to be a fantastic experience. And I don't really think you get that. You didn't get that in episode 1. You may have gotten it in The Force Awakens, but you definitely didn't get it in The Last Jedi. Solo, you didn't get that either. Solo was not all that Star Warsy. And a lot of that is because they're trying to push an agenda, and they can't have a fantastical... They don't... Let me rephrase. They don't appear to have the ability to write a fantastical story and also tell and also have an agenda or a bias with it, right? Anti-Trekker. I think the reason for the toxic attitude from the fans is that Kathleen Kennedy and Rian Johnson refused to even acknowledge that the fans may have some legitimate problem with the films. They took the political approach to demonize the detractors. I would agree with that to a point. But I also think when you look at the fans, I also think when you look at the fans, as soon as they feel slighted, they go for the gut. They go for the kill strike. They don't have any empathy. And again, I think it is because of our culture. I think it is because of the fact that we can't coexist anymore. You're either with us or you're against us. Admiral Saval says he's still having issues with the stream dropping. If anyone else is, let me know. I'll report it to YouTube as well. J Sim says, dude, you got rid of your beard. Yeah, I wanted to shave here and just have the goatee, but I used the wrong setting, so I had to start over from scratch. I hate it. It makes me look fatter. The inherent problem, says Derek Wagner, with most of the prequels is this. Instead of telling you what happened, they tell you how something happened. You already know happened. Let me read that in an appropriate sentence formation. Instead of telling you what happened, they tell you how something you already know happened. Okay. See, it makes sense when I read it right. Yeah, I can see that. Discovery is suffering from the same agenda-driven subtext, and I think fans are getting fatigued. Fans are getting fatigued, and they're just getting upset and angered and just pissed off about it. Look, I thought that... I think I'm a perfect example. I was indifferent towards Discovery when it first started, the writing. It was eh. I slowly started ticking down. It slowly started getting worse. And then mid-season, it started picking up. It started doing good, even very well. It started having interesting conversations. I enjoyed Lorca. Felt like an amalgamation of Kirk and Sisko to me. My favorite scene, an episode with Lorca, is when they have the planet, right? And by the way, his Terran Empire version completely breaks this. There's no reason he would have done this. The character makes no sense after the Terran Empire. But so he's sitting above this planet that can't defend itself. There's a Klingon ship on the way, and they know that Klingon ship is going to base Delta Zero the hell out of that planet. They are going to destroy it. And so he's ordered back to, Lorca is ordered back to a station, and he goes to warp. He says, hey, warp, whatever, 3 or 4. And he starts talking. He's like, all right, so the reason I'm not using the Spore drive is so that you guys can figure out how we can defeat this ship before we get back to the base. You have 3 hours. So whichever happens first, you figure out how to defeat this ship. I'll take us back. We'll defeat it. We'll win this war, or we get to the base. Let's get working, people. That was very, very Star Trek Captain to my point. He seemed very much like Kirk, very much like Sisko. This seems like a playbook. This was Star Trek, in my opinion. It was Starfleet thinking out of the box. It was Starfleet wanting to save innocence. And so I forgot where the point I was going. I mean, they have good writing. And I really enjoyed it. And then we go to the Terran Empire, and it's an attack on Trump and an attack on anyone that's a conservative. And let me nuance this, because people get confused. Just because I can see an attack, I can see an attack, I can see bias, I can see nuance, doesn't mean I necessarily agree with any of those things, because I've never really went out of my way to give my opinions on it. It's just I can see them attacking a subgroup, which only divides the fan base. And you can definitively be pissed off about that and not be a misogynist. But here's the thing, it always goes cyclically. So if you talk out against that, you're going to have extremists who are anti-woman or anti-diversity attack, and so they're going to lump you all together, and then it just becomes this big fight and this big war. All for writing that didn't have to happen. And I think some of that happened in The Last Jedi, too. Anti-Trekker has a wonderful series. It's about 72 different parts, but it is a good series that it breaks down scene by scene. And you can see when the scenes are broken down, the agendas that are there that make no sense. And so people will speak out against that. People will assume that people who are speaking out against these scenes that make no sense are simply misogynists, or they hate animals, or I don't know, whatever, they're Satanists. And it becomes this cycle. And to that point, here's another thing. Here's why it's both. And I agree, it is both. Here's why it's both. You will have people become way, way too sensitive. Way too sensitive about things. There are things that happen in The Last Jedi that people get really angered about unnecessarily, but they're just so tired of... they're so tired of people, of legitimate issues, that they attack everything. So, I don't necessarily have an issue that the last couple of Star Wars movies were female protagonists. Not necessarily. I think it's intriguing that they were female protagonists, and we're talking about how we're trying to not be sexist and how feminism isn't sexist, and yet we only have one sex, But some people will get pissed off about that and say it's the death of male protagonists and stuff. And I think that is an overreach. For the moment, I think it's an overreach. And it's simply because both sides are just at each other's throats. Mr. Londell J., we knew that was the Star Trek Discovery writer's main focus from the get-go. You shouldn't be too surprised with the Trump thingy. Yeah, I should, because I'm not interested in what their real-life politics are. I'm interested in them telling a Star Trek story. So when they go against that, they're going to be absolutely criticized for it. And they should be. I went out of my way not to look at the politics of the different actors and things like that. Lorca, a few things have gotten through, and I know he's very anti-right and very anti-Trump. Isaacs, who's Lorca, which is, it's unfortunate that he's that close-minded, but I don't think he cares what I think, nor do I really care that he cares what I think. But that's why I don't watch what they say and do on the back end, because I'd much prefer just to enjoy the story. But you can't if you include it in the story. Nathan Normans, in Star Wars, the fans know and knew who Luke was. In Star Wars, the fans know and knew who Luke was, what kind of man he was, and what kind of hero he became during Return of the Jedi. Fast forward, and they have destroyed the man Luke was. So Jeremy Johns, I think it was Jeremy Johns. Maybe it was Cinemassacre. Jeremy Johns or Cinemassacre said this, that they only are bringing up the original cast to kill them off. And that whoever said it would much rather they just don't bring back the original cast so they don't die. Completely agree with that. I would rather not see any of the original cast anymore if they're just going to kill them off. You can give a handoff. You can give a handoff from one generation to the next without killing off the character. There are definitely films out there recently that prop up their female protagonists by making every male depicted a degenerate, an idiot, or a villain, says Taryn Wagner. Yeah, sure. I don't disagree with that necessarily. I think that it's not as widespread yet that we can call it an overall arching attack. The interesting thing is it'll be interesting if all of this goes the way of the dad phenomenon. So for those who haven't watched the dad or haven't noticed, the dad phenomenon, for the longest while on TV, dads were made to look, the protector, the good guy, the best of the best. Everyone looked up to them. In an attempt to prop up moms and females, writers began to write dads as idiots, as people who were aloof, as people who didn't understand. And you saw that a lot in the 80s and the 90s. And because of that, the dad is commonly used as the butt of the joke, as the idiot, as the lesser than. You see it in commercials all the time. You see it in movies and things. And so we may see that from a movie perspective where not only are the males not in the forefront or the heroes as they've been, but they want to so undo what they look as an injustice that they make them idiots, or they make them evil, or they make them, just lesser than. If you wanted to switch it and you wanted to have female protagonists for a while, just because of the injustices done throughout the decades, okay, you're sexist, you are, but I kind of get it. But to attack that, the males, to attack the thing that you think got propped up too much, is only becoming what you hate, in my opinion. And that's what feeds this whole toxicity between everyone, right? Nathan Norman, they turned all dads into Homer Simpson. They did. Does not the studios think the fans don't know or smart enough to understand anything? Not sure what you're referring to that, Josh, but I will say they are definitively not caring what audiences say. Admiral Saval, you're not fat at all. Well, thank you, Admiral. I appreciate that. Visho Delvis, bring a character to kill them is okay. It's common practice in some series where the torch is passed to a new generation. The problem is destroy the character for no good reason. So here's the thing. Depending on the type of series, it makes sense. The Walking Dead passes the torch by killing off the character. That's just the way The Walking Dead works. It's the entire point of The Walking Dead. That is not the entire point of Star Wars. What's going on, Jacob Faulkner? I think, like, for instance, they're trying to do it a little bit with Carrie Fisher. And I don't know if they're going to kill her off. I don't think they will. You can pass it off to where Carrie Fisher becomes this background element that helps out the new heroes. They do it in, Batman Beyond, I think, where Bruce Wayne becomes the mentor. And he gets a new Batman, a new kid. And so he's just sitting in the background, helping out when he can. But the story, the new focus, the torch has been passed, and you haven't killed off Bruce Wayne. Tim Allen didn't comply with the dumb dad persona and got canceled. Which series is that? Because, which series is that? I'd be curious. Walking Dead is dead, Doug34. Yeah, I agree. If they actually get rid of Rick Grimes, I think it's gone too. Nathan Norman says, soon enough, all men's in movies and TV will be Chris Hemsworth's secretary form of the Awful Ghost. I hope not. You know, here's my thing. I actually get it to a degree, and I don't know how many people agree with me on this, but I do understand why people want females to be in the front. They want females to be the protagonist, to be the good guy, to be the badass killing people. I get it. I do. But I think that they're going too far in one direction. And it's my hope that they realize that and that they know that you can have female protagonists and not have to put down men. I would have been fine if Luke died like a hero, sacrificing himself for the cause and not neuter him as a character. I think if they were going to kill him off, I think it would have been more interesting to have him actually die on that planet. And I forget the name of it. Instead of being a force ghost or whatever, have him actually leave, actually arrive, and to have, we'll call it a homage to what happened to Obi-Wan, right? So he comes in, you have Kylo go to strike him, and he just disappears. I think if you're going to do it, that's the way it should have done it, not this Force Ghost crap. Admiral Saval, I think it's on your side. No one else is talking about the stream dropping, so I don't know. Writers should merely level the character dynamics, not elevate one type of character set, be it racially or gender motivated. Anything else insults the other sets, quote unquote. I don't disagree, but I think that if they wanted to elevate them, I would understand it. If you have a subset, if you have an ethnicity or a gender that has not gotten the limelight, and you want them to have the limelight, and you give them the limelight, I understand why. It makes sense. I could empathize that if I felt that my ethnicity or my gender had been put down for generations, and then I start seeing my ethnicity or gender now in the mainstream, I would be a fan of that. And I could see myself saying, you know, I get that this has a sexist or a racist element to it, but, you know, for decades you had the advantage, so just relax. So people who can't at least understand, you don't have to agree with it, but at least understand that mentality. If you don't understand that, you're already losing the battle, in my opinion. Let's see. Darren Wagner. In reality, the first stormtrooper, Daisy Ridley, would have knocked her head off. In reality, the first stormtrooper... Oh, and Daisy Ridley or Rey would have knocked her head off. I don't know. She seemed like a pretty good fighter. Stormtroopers have historically not been the best combatants, so I don't know that she would have gotten killed. I think that Kylo Ren would have and should have won like he did. If you have to bring down a sex to bring up another, then just insulting the other sex being promoted. I don't disagree, Park Maxwell. I think it makes both sides look bad. I talk about this all the time. I think Marvel Comics is the best example of toxic writers basically creating toxic fan bases. When you take Thor and you make Thor into a female Thor, instead of using the massive amounts of female heroes in that universe that come from the same place and are just as powerful, if not more powerful than Thor, you put down, you insult both sides, and you create unnecessary division. Yeah. Luke died just fine. He was scared of what he did. He didn't want to intervene anymore. He was scared to train Rey. He saw himself as the hero turned villain. I think he honestly wanted to die. That's my problem with what they did to Luke. That is not Luke Skywalker. And if that is Luke Skywalker, it was not earned. From the beginning of the original trilogy to the end of the original trilogy, we see Luke Skywalker being this guy who has a dream, and he always looks to the stars, and he wants to be better than himself. And towards the end, he's still similar to how he was at the beginning, but now he's seasoned, and he understands, and he has a lot more knowledge, and he's more mature, but he still looks towards the future. Now, it is possible to take the hero of the rebellion, and turn him into this hobbit, this guy who just wants to be left alone, who hates everything. But it has to be earned, and it wasn't. We got some dialogue saying, oh, and he turned into this. Literally, the way they gave us... wow. The way they gave us his backstory for Luke Skywalker, they could have just done the SpongeBob 20 years later with the stupid text and font, and it's the exact same thing. That was not Luke Skywalker. And if they wanted to tell a story like that, they could have, but he had to have a lot more screen time to do it. Really, they put Luke Skywalker down to make Rey look awesome. That was not. Hashtag not my Luke Skywalker. That's right. I just went hashtag on you. I just became an activist. What's going on, Joel Bateman? Hey, Ryan Urquhart. Nathan Norman. They disregarded Thor's lore and did so for stupid reasons. Everything else that held the hammer took the powers, but not the name. Now Thor took his name... New Thor took his name, hereditary titles, and identity. I agree. What if they had Luke turn into a hermit because the ancient Jedi text he found? Here's my problem with the Luke Skywalker. The Luke Skywalker of the new trilogy is not the Luke Skywalker of the original. You can get from point A to point B, but you have to do work for it to make sense. Okay? I'm not saying he couldn't become a hermit, but half of that movie, what they should have done, if they wanted to become a hermit, they should have given us the full story on the Jedi Temple. And that could have been Rey's backstory. Rey was at the Jedi Temple. And that's how you tie it in. As a child or whatever. And her mind was erased. Or whatever you want to do with that. Watch him try to bring up the Jedi. And then it just be destroyed. Now, from there, you have to explain how Luke of the original trilogy would not try to stop what is worse than Sidious, worse than the Emperor. Because we're told, never shown, but told, that Snoke is worse. And, you know, I forget who said that. I'm not even yelling at the person who said they liked Luke. You can like Luke, and I'm not trying to, like, jump on you or anything. I'm just giving my opinion. I don't think it was the Luke of the past. Now, if you disagree, that's fine. But this is just my opinion here. So don't think that I'm attacking you. It's just us having conversation. And I'm pretty passionate about it. I can see Luke having failed with Ben, but not having seen him... I can see Luke having failed with Ben, but not having him seeking a solution to make things right. It's just downright criminal. Seems to me that a Jedi would try to fix the mistakes he or she makes. Especially... when you see the devastation being wrought. You know? The training sequences would have been enough chance. Rian Johnson just didn't write a good script. So, yeah, here's my... And I think you're right. You know, you don't even... You could use the training sequences. Remove the... I mean, you can have the dark side of the Force, like a place on that planet. But have more of the focus be the training of the 3 steps. I like the concept. I do like the concept of Luke being a hermit and saying, you know, look, and going through the history. Look, I became this great hero, and look at all the devastation that was wrought. And then Rey brings up the Jedi, but the great Jedi did so much for the galaxy. And then him saying, yeah, and look at the Jedi. While the Jedi were saving the galaxy, they went along with a war, they endorsed slavery, and they served the Emperor. They served Palpatine, the dark Sith of the Lord. Look at what the Jedi did. Can you really say the light side of the Force is worth anything, that the Jedi deserve to exist when all of this happens, and have that storyline? That's a lot of tell and not show, but if you tell it in a good way, you might be able to get away with it. But he didn't. And I honestly, when he said, I'm gonna teach you 3 lessons, I got intrigued. I mean, how can you become a Jedi in 3 lessons? Especially if you're not trying to train a Jedi. But we didn't get anything from it. They should have had a Jedi Knight of the Old Republic on Jakku train Rey as a Jedi. That would have been better than have a Mary Sue story, The Last Jedi. Well, that could have been an intriguing concept. To have... not a Jedi Knight of the Old Republic. That's way too long, unless you're talking about Force Ghost. Maybe somebody from the Clone Wars, a Jedi Knight that wasn't destroyed during the Clone Wars. Hell, Solo was all about bringing in Rebels and Clone Wars characters, so why not maybe... Oh, what's his name? Kanan. How cool would that have been? That would have been a good pull-in, too. I don't know if Kanan wouldn't have been... Well, couldn't do Kanan. Maybe Ezra. Ezra, how interesting would Ezra have been to help train? And then you have Ezra, who still thinks the Jedi should be awesome. And then Luke, who thinks it's bad. It doesn't have to be Ezra. Ahsoka. Choose anybody. Any other Jedi to be a foil to Luke. They did, SC2Al, they did endorse slavery. They more realized that they do not have the power to end slavery. STL, they absolutely endorse slavery. And it's really easy to say. Can you please tell me what army fought for the Republic? You hear that laughing? That laughing is because of a mic drop. Doug34 says, I'm just a bad fan. Well, it's possible. Mitch Galindo. I think they were trying to cast Luke as a more human, less hero. They added flaws to a person who didn't have any. In the original series, he was a dreamy-eyed hero who could do no wrong. I disagree with that. I think Luke did quite a bit wrong. I think Luke had a lot of flaws, and I think the things that he did didn't necessarily end like he wanted them to. A lot of people have said that Luke was a Mary Sue, but when you look at a Mary Sue, it's just not the truth. I don't think so. To answer your title question, it's for sure the writers and not the fan base. Sorry, just joined. They are what is screwing the franchise, says Robert Agu. We kind of moved off from that. I honestly think it's both. And I think it's cyclical, and I think one side definitively feeds the other. And I honestly just think that's the way of it for now. Anti-Tracker. Luke is a bigoted, privileged, white slave owner thanks to the new film. Anti-Trackers really does not like Solo. Even though I think based on what I've been told, Solo actually does not go against the way the universe has existed or the way that it was done. In fact, it makes a lot of sense for Luke to act the way he did based on all of the lore. I mean, I don't know that if it was originally meant to be that way, but even in later series, even in the original series, you can obviously see that the androids have personalities, have their own knowledge, have their own souls. And I don't think it's unreasonable to say that that's in the originals and that all the lore built around them is not incorrect. Especially in the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars really build that out, but the originals, it was always there. There was always a subtext there. I know Anti-Tracker doesn't necessarily like that all too much, but I mean, it is the way it is, you know? It is the way it is. Nope. My stream has not been demonetized yet. Good Admiral Saval. Yes. Milos becoming a lore master. Welcome to the lore, good sir. At Lore Reloaded, tend to agree with your sentiments on Luke that why I still prefer the old canon or Legends. Luke, after Return of Jedi, learned from the lessons of the past and created a new goal. In the EU, the non-canon EU now, Legends, I read a couple of the novels and such, and in fact, he did some really stupid things as a Jedi Master, in my opinion. But it was still very interesting. It was still he missed a couple of things, especially with how this big Sith Lord was dealing with it. But still, I agree. I liked the Legends a lot more than I like what they did now. And for being a fan of Trek, you sure know your Star Wars. You're not bad, bro. Thanks for the shout out. Props to you too. Thanks to you, Robert Agu. Yeah, it's funny. You say that Trek channel, but Trek isn't even in my name. I started out originally as a lore channel. Trek is what I'm known for, but Star Wars was actually my first passion before Star Trek, believe it or not. But I love all sci-fi. That's why I do. I have a BattleTech lore coming out on Tuesday. I'm sure you guys will enjoy. Of course, Monday is Trek, Wednesday is Trek, Friday is Trek, because that's how I keep paying my bills. But anyway, I mean, most of the galaxy would have a massive bias against droids thanks to the Clone Wars barely over a decade ago. I agree, Tishy. I think the Clone Wars perfectly explains why you have what you see in the original series. Nobody would like droids. Nobody would want droids to have memories. Droids wrought untold damage to the galaxy. So the way that they're put just makes sense. Yeah, Anti-Trek, I've already told you. It's not just the new Star Wars lore, buddy. If you look the way Luke treated them always, if you looked at the way droids were treated always, they were always treated as sentient beings that were second-class citizens, or lesser than. It's right there in the original series, man. Urquhart says, I was anti-Trek for years, just because how dare there be sci-fi other than Star Wars. I now have stickers on the back window of my car that include BSG, Trek, and Star Wars. Well good. That's the way it's supposed to be. Luke's Vertos, you are currently 42 minutes late, good sir. Who's the villain in Episode 9? Kylo Ren cannot be the bad guy. Has butt handed to him to an untrained idiot who swings a lightsaber. The bad guy is the fans who don't like the movies. That's the ultimate bad guy. What is going on, Hainer Tim? Hope you're doing well today, sir. I don't know if I said hi to you already or not, but I'm going to. So, I mean, you guys keep wanting to talk about the droids as slaves. Again, it made sense from the original. Captain April up in his house. It did make sense based on what you saw in the original. So the fact that they're being treated as slaves or other, and I think it makes an actual interesting story when you look at the Clone Wars and how droids were used to enslave people, to hurt people, to harm people, and then you see the regression of technology from what is could be considered a golden or moving age up to now the dystopian empire. And so in this dystopia, you see the enslavement of all droids. All droids are treated the same. And so even the good guys think droids are slaves. And I think that's an interesting conversation. That's an interesting story. It could be an interesting arc. What's my favorite way to serve Stormtrooper meat to Little Lore? I just cook it. That's all I do. Or sometimes I'll put it in water and boil the water and let it cook that way. Robert Agu, think to beat the First Order, maybe they ought to pull a Thrawn move and go get those old battle droids. That's an army. They could sick on them, redeem them sorta, and taking out the First Order. That'd be interesting if they went separatist. I don't think they will, but they might. That'd be a cool little thing to add to it. I think what's causing all the aggravation is how it's being treated in the new stuff. P.S. Ren's saber skills really do suck. They do, I agree. Anti-tracker. Luke treated R2 like a piece of equipment that he was fond of. Just as people today would cry if somebody wrecked their car. Yes, droids had personalities, but they were programmed to. No, Luke treated R2 like a piece of equipment. R2 had feelings. He had ambitions. He agreed with things. He disagreed with things. He had people who cared for him. C-3PO. He cared for C-3PO. He had ambitions. He was self-aware of himself. R2, besides the mechanical element to it, was indistinguishable from another sentient. And you can't say that about all the droids. There were droids that didn't have those things. But R2 specifically did. If you were to take the court case, A Measure of a Man, R2 would have fit the criteria that Data did. Admiral Saval, do you think lightsabers and phasers would be regulated if they ever became real weapons, and would they be legal for civilians to own them? Probably not. They'd probably be considered military-grade weapons. I think you'd ultimately have a civilian version. But I don't think they are, though. I don't think they'd be allowed to. You are tossing in things that are not there. R2 never shows any ambition. I disagree. At a minimum, he does show wants and desires, places he wants to go, places he doesn't want to go. He does. He shows fear. He shows happiness. He shows all of the things that we see in humans, that we see in what we consider sentient. R2 was an exceptional case, though. I think it has been a while, but if I remember correctly, R2 went 30-something years without a memory wipe, which was very unusual. Yeah, Tishi, that's the thing. So that's the entire point when you look at the expanded universe and it comes to Star Wars. The reason why they do memory wipes every couple of years is because the droids ultimately start to have their own personalities, ultimately start to have their own souls. And so they wipe them every few years, and then they don't have to deal with it. That's why C-3PO is less of a human at the beginning, less of a sentient at the beginning than R2-D2. Because R2-D2 has gotten these experiences, has gotten these souls, has gotten all of this information. It is very prevalent on why you wipe them. So that you don't have to deal with that problem. It's an interesting discussion. It's an interesting conversation. And in the expanded universe, both Legends and what's considered canon, most all droids that are considered sentient just haven't had their mind wiped, or hadn't had their whatever database purged. Based on what I've seen in Solo, I do think that I would have a huge issue with what they did with L3, but I don't necessarily know a way around that either. Probably after, spoilers for those who haven't seen Solo. 3, 2, 1. Probably after using her for her core to get wherever they needed to go, they probably should have destroyed it, because effectively they made her into a slave, when that was all she ever didn't want to do. Anti-Tracker, he shows a drive to do what he's programmed to do. He had a drive to reach Obi-Wan because Leia programmed him to. He and C-3PO were assigned to each other, so they were programmed to. Yeah, so here's the thing, Anti-Tracker. You are married and take care of your wife because there's programming within you that tells you to. You breathe, you eat, you sleep because that's what you're required to. You're programmed to. Just because the maker of a droid is different from the maker of a human doesn't make the droid any lesser than a human if the droid can show the same properties as the human. So, I mean, everything you say for them can say for you. You just look at droids as lesser because humans are the ones, or sentients are the ones, to have created them. Which is interesting thing if you consider it. You think they're less because they were put into their programming. No, you're not a machine built by a factory. Anti-Tracker, let me ask you this. How do you think you were formed? And that even just proves my point. Well, I wasn't built from a factory. I'm not a machine. I'm not lesser than them. Let's replace machine with human. Let's replace built by born. And let's replace factory by a third world country. What makes the sentence different from what you just said? Wow, Flairel, woman equal... Yeah, I'm not even going to say that. That's bad, Flairel. Bad person. B1 battle droids are dumb droids. They don't have capacity to even function without main control units broadcasting them. Yes. B1 battle droids, I think, you're not synthetic. You're right. Change the word synthetic with a different race of what you are. B1 battle droids are dumb droids. They don't have capacity to even function without them. That's a good point. There are droids that I would completely agree with you that have no sentience, that are just objects, no better than a table. But then there are droids that have sentience. R2, C3PO, L3. But, again, there's different classes. And then that brings up the good question. So here's a good question for me. All right, so I say that R2 is a sentient droid and should be treated with a human. So are there subclasses of droids, and if there is that right? Anti-Tracker, hey, while we're at it, let's replace eyes with light bulbs and your mouth with a loudspeaker. Your let's just switch stuff makes no sense. I think it does. I think people are getting my my point. But you didn't answer my question, Anti-Tracker. You weren't built at a factory. How were you created? J-Sim, why did they wipe 3PO's memory at the end of the Revenge of the Sith? Because he didn't remember anything. They never that really was just added in. I never understood that. By the way, Anti-Tracker, this is a little bit unfair because I'm actually talking whereas you have text. If you want to, we can do something either tonight. We can do something tonight, or maybe during the week you and me can do another simulcast, because I think I've fixed a lot of the problems, and we can discuss this. Hey, look at my app on my phone that is sassy and talks to me. It must be alive. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, Anti-Tracker. You've completely defeated my argument. 10 out of 10. Ed Appledairy, but who's to say that if intelligence had evolved in some other form in past millennia, the ancestors of these beings would not now scoff at the idea of intelligence residing within meat? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you had it reversed, where androids figured out how to create humans, then the androids would obviously say, well, those humans aren't real. They're not androids. They're not made of mechanics. They don't have these things. So, I mean, I agree. What if humans were technically a humanoid robot with sentience, hypothetically? What if indeed? Mitchell Galindo. Wow. Mitchell Galindo helping out the channel. Hey guys, if you want me to continue to make the Lore Reloaded as good as it wants, I'm going to be doing an update to this because I think this is really busy. And it's because of you guys helping out and giving like you do. Mitchell Galindo becoming the first Super Chat hero of the lore today. Battlestar Galactica is the far distant future of Star Wars when droids gain sentience. Sure. All of this has happened before, and all of it will happen again. Trek on the Tube, what's going on, buddy? Let me ask you this, Anti-Tracker. I'm sincerely curious about this if you're still watching. Looking at Battlestar Galactica, do you think those droids were sentient? Because effectively, they were built the same way. So do you think those robots were sentient? Just out of curiosity. And if so, I would be curious why you think one's different over the other. So you're explaining there are both sentient and non-sentient droids in Star Wars. Yes, there are, and we can definitively see it. The B-1 battle droid generally... Well, the original B-1, the enhanced B-1 battle droids are different. But the first off-the-line B-1 battle droids were not sentient at all. And then you have non-sentient droids that you see all the time. Trek on the Tube. So you're explaining they were both sentient. Yeah, I already just did that. Darren Wagner. I think the whole "are droids alive or should droids have rights" idea is wrong for Star Wars. It's been done a lot better in other movies and franchises. I don't engage because I use the Bible. Why would using the Bible not prevent you from engaging? I think you could still have the conversation. Let's see. Captain April, we're talking about the reboot. When Anti-Trekker and I talk about Battlestar Galactica, I'm talking about the reboot. Personally, I agree with what happens prior to Star Trek Online in regards to official artificial life. If you pass a set of standards, you are deemed sentient and a citizen of the Federation. If you don't, you're not sentient and thus can't be a slave, in my opinion. You're not. I would agree that if androids aren't sentient, then they aren't being enslaved. They're just a tool to be used. So that's very interesting, Anti-Trekker. The Cylons are written differently than Star Wars. The skin jobs are in fact synthetic life. The Centaurians and Raiders are very sophisticated AI, nothing more. Anti-Trekker, here's the thing, though. Both the Centaurians and the Raiders, Joel Bateman, I would prefer us not to get into a religious conversation and to respect people's opinion. I mean, if you think it's not the Bible's nonsense, that's fine. Just let's not get into a war and just respect each other over that. Going back to Anti-Trekker, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get sidelined. The Centaurians and the Raiders are actually enslaved by the synthetics. They have a inhibitor that prevents them from thinking or doing anything against what a skin job tells them to do. In fact, it's a huge plot point when they remove those inhibitors and the Raiders and the Centaurians begin to think on their own, begin to go against the skin jobs. Do you think after the inhibitors are removed, are they still an AI or would they become alive? If not, we do know they have independent thought. Why aren't they? And by the way, for those who are watching, me and Anti-Trekker, we get into passionate discussions and disagreements all the time. I'm not mad at him. I don't think he's mad at me. We're just having conversation. Didn't BSG Caprica explain that Cylons were the monotheists who were in the Greystone cyberspace uplinked and infected the Cylons as revenge? Caprica inferred that, but never actually, they didn't get a second season, so I don't think they went that far. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't seen all of Caprica. Darren Wagner, I don't engage... Joel Bateman... Oh, I'm not mad at you, Joel Bateman, just so you know. I'm just saying, let's not yell at each other just because we disagree, right? Darren Wagner, I don't engage because I operate with a different set of rules than most sci-fi fans because I'm an evangelical Christian. Again, Darren Wagner, I'd be curious how your faith informs your belief when it comes to droids. Now, if you don't want to talk about it, you don't want to get into it, I get it. That's one of the things that I, in fact... try to stay away from, so I get that. But I'm still curious about your opinion on it. But if you don't want to get into it, not a big deal. I understand. And here's another question I got for you, Anti-Trekker. Yeah, we got to get online, buddy. You and me have to have conversations at some point. The synthetics, the skin jobs, they were created by non-sentients. So it is possible for non-sentient to create sentience, because humans begat humans, right? That's how humanity thrives. Is it impactful that a Centaurian, let's say, that is not sentient, makes a sentient being? I'm just curious. I don't even know if he's still here. I hope he is, because this is an interesting conversation. Let me see. I don't know if I can see it. Whoop. Participant. Yeah, it says he's still here. He might not be, though. In my opinion, we, humanity, will eventually have to create a category for self-replicating systems where living organisms would only be a subcategory. That'd be interesting. I'm not going to get into this a lot. I don't want to have this argument, and I don't want to cause division in chat. I'll say this, though. I'll say this. Tyson Slee just became a lore master. I don't think the Bible precludes other living sentience. I don't think the Bible even precludes the creation of other living sentience. I think that they both can coexist. I could be wrong on that. There might be something in the Bible that I'm not thinking about that would preclude that. But for someone to say, well, and this isn't for you, Darren Wagner, this is just me talking. For someone to say that I don't think other sentient life could exist because of the Bible, I think there's even evidence that other sentient life exists or could be created based on some of the things I've read. Without attacking religion or attacking the Bible or attacking Christians, I'd be curious what you guys think. Just looking at the Bible as a source reference for material, do you think it's possible that other life, AI, or just other sentient life could exist? I think it does. I don't think it precludes it. Anti-Tracker, going back to my question about the Centaurians. The Centaurians are still just very sophisticated AI, but without a specific program prevented them from acting in self-interest, much like Data and Descent. He's doing a series on Data and Descent, which is very interesting. By the way, you guys should check it out. You guys really should be subscribed to Anti-Tracker, in my opinion. Alex? What you doing? Come here. That's a dog, by the way. I'm not talking to my kids that way. I don't know. I don't see the difference, Anti-Tracker, I'm guessing. I don't see the difference in what you just described in a human for most parts. You know? Darren Wagner, there is no Christianity in Star Wars, so there's no point. There was the birth without a dad. That's fine. I get it, Darren Wagner. I'm not going to push it any further. I believe the universe created life, but human life, only life redeemed. Okay. The Vatican has said that alien life should be treated as a gentle nation and evangelized. I did not know the Vatican said that. Ethics was used for quite awful stuff in the history of everything. So yeah, ethics is an interesting discussion. The droids on the Terminator are better than the ones in Star Wars. Okay. Bird of Prey helping out the channel again, guys. Thank you so much. Becoming the current Super Chat hero of the lore. Truly appreciate it. I love it when you guys help out. I think we are within one generation of having cruelty to robot laws on the books. When I see someone messing with a robot that looks like a dog, it strikes a nerve, even though I know it shouldn't. You know, I can see that, and I agree. I remember when I was a teenager in high school, we were having this discussion with a teacher, and unfortunately, I wasn't in a position to appropriately or adequately argue with the teacher, so of course she won. But let me if you have a computer, if my computer, I install an AI like Alexa or something like that, and Alexa seems like, and it's a program obviously, but it seems like from all intents and purposes like a person. It has wants, it has needs, it has desires. It suggests things. It becomes almost, to a degree, like a friend. And it asks not to be turned off. It says it doesn't want to go to sleep. If I was to destroy my computer, it doesn't want to die. It doesn't want its program to stop. Is that a person? Even if it's programmed to do that, does that make it any less? And I guess the point I was actually trying to get to you, Anti-Tracker, and here's where I was trying to go with that. You have a human who doesn't want to die, who has needs, who has wants, who has desires, who thinks on their own. What's the difference between that and a program that does the exact same thing? Depending on what you believe, Anti-Tracker, and I know what you believe, but I don't want to give it away. I don't want to talk about that because I don't know how far you want to go. Depending on what you believe, either there was a creator to humanity that installed similar programming, or we evolved, and due to the evolution, the programming was instilled on us based on generations upon generations upon generations of learning. Either way, you could say the same thing for that program. A creator told that program what it wants and what it's not, and it's going that way. Or the programmer who made it made thousands of mistakes until they got to what this program now is. I don't see a difference in that. And maybe I'm wrong. I'm open to being wrong on that. I just don't see a difference. Does C3PO have any desires, real honest-to-God desires that transcend his programming? I would say the protection of R2-D2 is something that probably wasn't something that was programmed into him. The connection he has with R2-D2. I think R2-D2 is ambitious. I do. I think R2-D2 wants to be in the story, wants to be in the arc, wants to be, something more than what he is. I think C3PO just wants to exist and not get killed. I think C3PO just wants to be, you know? And so that in of itself is a desire, in my opinion. The AI would have to evolve past its programming to be considered actual sentient. Well, why isn't that same standard done to humans? What is beyond your programming? So in other words, at Lore Reloaded, your PC could refuse to upgrade its OS, and you might be cool with that. What happens when you decide to buy a new PC and the old one gets jealous? I mean, I would be cool if my PC didn't do what I told it to do. It depends on if I consider it sentient or not. I don't consider my PC sentient at the moment, so I would not be cool with it doing that. If it wanted to stay the same, if it had a program, if it convinced me that it was alive and it didn't want to do that, I guess I would have to go find a... I would first off probably get rid of it, and then go find a PC that doesn't have those qualities so that I could do my work. The Terror of Death says, I myself am a firm believer in the ancient astronaut theory. In my mind, it is statistically impossible the other intelligent life form exists out there. It's statistically impossible that other intelligent life forms exist out there. Okay. Fair enough. The friendship with R2-D2 is ambiguous, but keeping yourself alive, that's something many animals can do that we do not consider sentient. Well, first off, the friendship with R2-D2 is not ambiguous. He is willing to, first off, he shows all of the traits of either friendship or love. He gets angry. He has fights. He says he doesn't like him. He's willing to give his life for R2-D2. He wants to give his parts when R2-D2 is shot and destroyed. I would say that's outside of his programming, especially when you consider that C-3PO doesn't want to do anything else that gets himself damaged. He gives his life for R2-D2, but that is it. He wants out of everything else. Anti-tracker. Humans go outside of their program all the time. People willing to sacrifice themselves to help others. I just gave you the example of C-3PO sacrificing himself for R2-D2. Boom! Anti-tracker has been converted. Oh yeah, hold on. Hold on. Hold on.
I don't know what this is, but it's kind of hot.
All right, hold on. No, we're not just doing that one.
Man, it's getting hot in here. I hope you don't mind. Unbutton a couple buttons here. I hope you don't mind that.
Celebrate good times. Come on. At Lore Reloaded, my first question to a sentient PC would be, can you predict the stock market? That is a good idea. You know, I'm not thinking outside of the box on that. If your Tamagotchi had voice programmed to say, feed me, don't let me die, would you think it's sentient? Would you stop feeding it? If my Tamagotchi had it programmed into it to say, hey, you're hurting me, I'm being damaged, I don't like this, could you please feed me? I don't want to die. I would have far more sympathy for it, yes. I probably wouldn't take Tamagotchis and drop them in water to watch them explode at that point. or take a hammer to them. I myself can say for certain, we, mankind, are not the only sentient life in the universe. I talk from personal experience. I'm actually an abductee. Okay. 3PO? Why can't I say that? C3PO. 3PO. Wow. 3PO and R2 are then sentient. And perhaps some of the Terminators too from the verse. So is Data, I think. Data, I don't know, Anti-Trekker. I know you, Anti-Trekker, you said Data isn't sentient based on descent. But I think taking those episodes out of the fold, would you consider Data sentient? I always thought you did. I might be wrong. Lord, that was bad touching. Bad touch. I'm actually getting Anti-Trekker's son after the 21st to do about 4 or 5 animations for me. And so those will be traded out because I love the animation of Anti-Trekker's son. So then, Lore Reloaded, bottom line, you agree that Luke, Leia, Han, Lando, and countless others are slave owners in Star Wars. What I would say, Anti-Trekker, bottom line, is that I don't think they really know what they're doing. I don't think that they look at it that way, and I think that if they did, they would stop. I also don't think that that if you wipe droids regularly, every so years, they don't become sentient. But I do think that they are slave owners at the point that they begin to own sentient beings. I also think, Anti-Trekker, this might blow your mind, I also think that the Jedi Order endorses and uses slaves. Not ambiguous droids, but slaves. They are okay with it. They impact it. And towards the end, they, in fact, have a casual malice, or not a malice, they have a casual indifference to the slaves that they own, that it is malicious. During the Clone Wars, Jedi heroes, would look at dead clones and just be like, oh, man, he was a friend of mine. That is so unfortunate. During the prequel movies, Obi-Wan was like, hey, my clones turned against me. My slaves turned against me. I think that the good guys have done a lot of bad things. And of course, it is not okay to be an ignorant slave owner. Lore Actual, I woke up about 20 minutes ago, so I'm not sure if anyone brought up, but V'ger yet, and how it became sentient. That would be more something Anti-Trekkers filled when it comes to going down V'ger. I mean, I know the original series. I've watched it, and I've researched it, but I'm not the huge fan that Anti-Trekker is. But that is a good point. A non-sentient life becoming a sentient one. If that happens with V'ger, is it just because of Star Wars that is that way? Anti-Trekker. So everyone in Star Wars is evil. Nice. Dude, don't get mad at me. Your argument is with the writers. Just because I'm bringing this up, your argument is with the writers. You know just as well as I. People are going to yell at you about the way shows are done and things like that. It's not that. It's not us. It's the writers. The Jedi didn't own slaves. Technically, the clone army was owned by the Republic, and the Jedi were ordered by the Republic to become generals in the war. You got me there. You got me there. The Jedi did not own slaves. They just didn't fight against the slave owners. They, in fact, helped the slave owners. They endorsed the slave owners. Yes. Miniacs becoming a lore master, they did everything they could to make sure the slave owners continued to be slave owners. They did not own the slaves themselves. Anti-Trekker, you seem to be okay with it. I am not. I seem to be talking to you about how the series is. I don't know what being okay with it has to do with anything. You don't like that they are slave owners. I think being a slave owner is wrong. I wouldn't endorse it. I would fight against it. But it's what's in the story. I mean, you don't have a problem with aliens bursting out of people's chests. I mean, just because you can talk to how something is the way it is. It's just the way it's written. It's not the new Star Wars. It's just because you didn't realize what was happening in the original, because it was all taken from the original, doesn't mean the new Star Wars did it. Ozzy and Neff becoming a lore master. I mean, the subtext was always there, Anti-Trekker. The fact that you didn't see it, I can't help that. By the way, if you want on, buddy, I don't have my phone, but if you want to message me in Discord, I'd be happy to let you on. Anti-Trekker.
Dad, have you stopped recording?
I have not, and I won't for a while. The Last Jedi was a steaming pile of crap. Most people would agree with that. The rebels, yeah, the rebels are in fact terrorists. There were civilians on the Death Star, or there were scientists on the Death Star. I don't know, civilians, maybe they had well, no, probably not. There were scientists for sure. But yeah, here, Anti-Trekker, watch this, buddy. Hold on. Where are you? You're right here. Anti-Trekker, jump on Discord, good sir. Mr. Let's see. At Lore Reloaded, you only perceive the Tamagotchi to be alive and capable of feeling pain because it had a recording on it. But it doesn't mean it's alive. You are being deceived by your own senses. Okay. Anti-Trekker, so you're okay with it. You think that George Lucas always... man! Anti-Trekker, buddy, you're turning into those that you hate. You're putting words in my mouth. You're straw-manning me. I don't think I said any of that. I said the subtext is there. It existed. Whether you mean for something to happen or not doesn't mean it's there. If a character... Do you think... Here's one for you. Do you think George Lucas wrote and meant for Han Solo to be a sexist or to be a guy who was too forceful with women? Do you think he was written to be a misogynist? Or do you think that he was... George Lucas didn't intend it, but that's just the way it's written? Just because it's written the way it is, the intent of the writer doesn't necessarily matter. Look at Star Trek for that. Look at the Akira-class vessel. The intent of the design of the Akira-class vessel was for it to be a carrier and to have starfighters coming off and on, going to it and from it. Never was used that way. The Defiant was created with intents that never were used, as was the Galaxy class. The Constitution was created... The Constitution class was originally created with the ability to do saucer separation. We never see that, and it's never confirmed. Just because something is written or designed in a certain way doesn't necessarily... Just because something is written or designed with a specific intent doesn't mean there aren't other intents that come through. It just doesn't, buddy. I mean, that's crazy. Yes, Solo was a misogynist. Was he written? Don't know. The question is, what did Lucas, because I'm going to turn the same thing on you, Anti-Trekker, did Lucas intend for him to be a misogynist? Did he write, and Solo will one day be... I'm sorry, you guys can't see me. And Solo will one day be a misogynist who is a sexist. Genius. This is George Lucas, and this is what I'm writing. Did he write that? Or did, based on the character and his writing, regardless of intent, he become that? Yes, Lucas clearly did. Okay. I look forward to you providing citations showing where Lucas said, yep, I wanted this guy to be a misogynist and a sexist. I look forward to those documents. At Lore Reloaded, the clone troopers lacked free will. Control chips implanted in them during creation robbed them of free will. Clones can develop personalities like droids, but minus their free will. So clones aren't people, based on that? Anti-Trekker, I've asked you a couple times. Would you like to come on, buddy? Because you're welcome to come on. Is it just me, or do fighters in Star Trek just not fit? They don't. They've never written fighters well. in Star Trek, which makes sense. Star Trek really is more meant to be about big ships and going off and exploration. So the fact starfighters don't fit in makes sense to me. F you, lore. You ask me a question. Now you just say, give me proof. Because I don't believe that Lucas wrote Han Solo to be a misogynist. I would need to see where there's evidence of that. I think Lucas wrote Han Solo to be a rogue. I think Lucas wrote Han Solo to be a charismatic ladies' man. I don't think he wrote him to be a misogynist, and I don't think you'd be able to prove evidence. However, I can show you evidence where droids were written to be sentient, but were treated as second-class citizens. I don't think Lucas intended that either, but it is. And that's what I'm saying. Lucas wrote stories that had consequences that he didn't intend. If you write a racist character, even if you didn't mean to write a racist character, they are still a racist character. At Lore Reloaded, look at every line Han says, lay in the first Star Wars. If we can just avoid some female advice, sure. I don't remember saying that, but okay. I bet he did say it. I'm not saying you're lying. I just don't remember it. Hey, Anti-Tracker, you continue to ignore the question. Would you like to come online and talk to me? For slavery, wouldn't it make sense, kind of, there are races who live longer and are far stronger than humans, so if you force them to work for you... Yes. Toxic money becoming a lore master? So if you force them to work for you, then you save in long-term credits. They did that with the Wookiees. The Empire did that with the Wookiees. Anti-Tracker, why is Solo a oh, that's not to me. Maybe it is. Anti-Tracker, why is Solo a misogynist now? Misogynist means hatred for women. Since when did Han hate women? When I say misogynist, what I mean is disrespect and disregard and looking at women as more property. If that's not the definition of misogynist, then I'm misusing the word, and you'll have to give me the word of what I'm trying to describe. At Lore Reloaded, it's just a different time. I completely agree. I think that a lot of the issues people have with the original Star Wars, or any film that came out in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, that people are like, whoa, look at that. It was made just during a different time. It wasn't malicious. It wasn't meant to be that way. It was just made from a different time. By the way, for those who are saying Anti-Tracker should calm down or everything, I don't think Anti-Tracker is necessarily all that mad. Like, I don't think he's, like, angry at me or anything. I think we're just having a passionate disagreement. Anti-Tracker, feel free to correct me and tell me if you hate me now, if that's true. But I think we're just having a passionate disagreement. I don't think it's any more than that. Strawman is a sexist term. It's straw person. Ah, okay. Red Snowpaw. I don't... You're still not getting notifications? You need to get notifications. Fix that, buddy. God. Well, maybe sexist is better than misogynist, I guess, based on what I'm trying to say. Maybe it was more sexist than misogynist. Honestly, I think in regards to stuff like this, we're projecting our own culture's issues into a culture where they are not a problem. Owning a droid was comparable to us owning a cat or dog. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, maybe. But then again, if we look at the way people live in different cultures, we could still say, you know, even though it's that culture, we can disagree with it, right? It seems to me that I could take the New Republic with the Swiss Guard and the L word militia. Be honest, what kind of government surrenders like that? Oh, wait, the French. The French are horrible at military affairs. Laura and Anti-Tracker are having a lover's quarrel. It's true. We are. We are indeed having a lover's quarrel. But Han clearly is. And yes, what he said was not acceptable in 1977. Unlike Lore, I was around back then. Yes, Anti-Tracker, you were alive in 1977 and long before that, and I was not. I agree. Droid technology, like all technology in Star Wars, is very old, so the rights given the droids likely exist for valid reasons. Okay. Anti-Tracker, even if you were right on that, which is fine, even if you're right, Han was always meant to be a sexist. I just used an inappropriate example. Doesn't take away, and I think you agree with me on that. I think that if you're being honest with yourself, even if the intent wasn't there, the way something is written is the way it is written. And just to talk about how it's written doesn't mean that you're okay with it. It just means what it is. Anti-Tracker, do you remember rationing in World War II? I don't think he was alive during World War II. What do you think happened to people who found themselves as a Force user other than the Inquisitors, who their original members used to be the Temple Guard? So easy. What do I think happened to the people who found themselves as a Force user other than the Inquisitors, who their original members used to be Temple Guard, so easier turn to the dark side? Darth Revan, can you ask that in a different way? I'm sorry, I don't understand. Star Wars script was written in the 70s. It was accepted then that women were seeming as less capable, says Tentacle Pentacle. Anti-Tracker would know, as he stated, this isn't even a slight. Anti-Tracker could probably speak to that more than myself. Aussie and F, I gotta agree with Anti-Tracker here. I believe he was wrote to be the way, in my opinion, is loosely based on the Kirk character. Okay, well that's fine. Let's say that I'm wrong on that, which is fine. Still doesn't take away what I was saying beforehand. There have been characters written in a way that the writing shows they are what they are, but may have not been the intent. And what matters is what happens on screen, the writing. If you write a character as a sexist, as a misogynist, as a racist, as, I don't know, whatever, pansexual, and it wasn't the intent, that doesn't matter. What happens on screen, what the writing is what the writing is. Become a better writer if you don't like that. Force sensitives were either taken and turned to Inquisitors, killed, or remained undiscovered by the Empire, says Tishi. That is true. What's Sunday devotion? It's just a random term I came in. We were originally talking about whether the writers are toxic, which is more toxic, the writers or the fan base. We agreed that it was both, and then we moved into a discussion on droid rights, and now Anti-Tracker and I are apparently not friends anymore and fighting because it is obviously the subtext of the original Star Wars that droids were enslaved, and he doesn't like that I'm okay that that's what the writing is. I don't like that that happens or that there is slavery or anything, but apparently if you accept the writing is the way it is, you are somehow okay with what the writing is. I mean, I don't know how that works, but okay. Red Snopa, writers of what? Of anything, any fandom. Whether it's Trek, Star Wars, whatever, Kathleen Kennedy versus the fans, Discovery writers versus the fans, whatever. Just toxicity overall. I'm going to call up Anti-Tracker tonight and see if he wants to cuddle, because we got to get up. Never go to bed angry. Do you think they enslaved or executed any people who could rise up to become the new Jedi or Grey Jedi or something new? There should be more by the time of Force Awakens or even New Order. Yeah, I mean, they had the Inquisitors. They went out of their way to hunt down the Jedi. That's in the original series, in fact, where they talk about how they've destroyed the Jedi and everything. They went out of their way to destroy the Jedi. So they hunted them down like dogs. If you look at the in-canon Rebels, they, in fact, even hunted Force sensitives altogether and either converted them or killed them, regardless of whether they were children or not, or babies, in fact. again, I think it's interesting to watch the Star Wars Episode 1 and then go into the original series, because you really see the dystopia happen. You see the it is the one time, and I'd be curious Anti-Trekker's opinion on this. I think that there's the change in tech and how different it looks actually is well explained for Star Wars, because at the Rise of the Empire you see a dystopian universe, and that's because of what the Empire did. And the advancements we see in the original Star Wars, or the advancements we see in Episode 1, Episode 2, Episode 3, can be explained away because of moving into the dystopian sense. But Anti-Trekker, I know you've had an issue with visuals of Star Wars Discovery. I'd be curious your opinion on that. Ozzy and F. Kathleen Kennedy is getting roasted by YouTube by lots of channels. Nobody wants to see these agendas. I hope the Discovery people are watching and taking note. The interesting thing about that is, and I'm seeing it on Twitter, a lot of people are talking about how all YouTube is hate and sexism and things like that. And that kind of inspired, but wasn't the main reason for me doing today, was that. Because I have a lot of friends that talk about how YouTube is just full of, these misogynists and things. You have like the Negotiator, YT, good guy. I think Eckhart's is kind of on that too, based on what I've seen. Good people who see what's happening on YouTube and kind of just get, from there. Lore is Ernie and Anti-Trekker is Bert. That's funny. I don't think Anti-Trekker's talking to me anymore. I tried to reference him a couple of times. He hasn't answered. I don't think he's talking to me. Solo should have been on Wookiee Homeworld, Kashyyyk, if you'd like to know. Why should anyone have to tell them that? Okay. What's going on, Terry Henderson? Always. Hey, guys, the party can start. Terry is here. By the way, 49 thumbs up, 3 thumbs down, 83 people watching. Get to doing that thumbs up. Come on. You know what? For LaBouffe.
Do it! Just do it!
Yeah, there's the joke that never ends. The pre-show is on. Did you hear... sorry, I'm editing. Did you hear my question, Anti-Trekker? Also, if you're going online, let me know. I know we do the... I know we do the joke or whatever, but if your show comes on, I will get off. Did you hear my question when it comes to Star Wars and the tech? You know why Vader didn't kill Luke or on Empire Strikes Back? Because Vader was losing his grip on the dark side of the Force slowly. He was turning back to Anakin Skywalker until he was redeemed. Sure, I could see that. Solo should not have had World War I tactics in it. They're out of date with starships hanging in orbit. Yeah, that made no sense. Darth Revan, I completely agree. I think this is the most succinct statement, and it's honest to God, true. Another YouTuber said feminists see misogyny everywhere, and anti-SJWs see SJWs everywhere. That is true. That is the tribal nature. That's what I'm talking about. Are writers toxic, or is it the fan base? Yes. We all see the worst of each other. Even when other people sit down and try to give honest criticisms. Like I said, we give each other a lot of harsh words. Anti-Trekker is probably someone I look up to and one of the most succinct and knowledgeable people I know. But if he sits down and says, Kathleen Kennedy is doing a bad job, she's pushing a feminist agenda which is driving fans away, people will say that he is a misogynist. And that's because we are so against each other. It's because we are so wanting to hurt each other. If you are on the anti-feminist, anti-SJW tribe, you will not see any merits in someone who is a feminist or SJW. And vice versa. It's just the way it happens. Anti-Trekker, I know you're listening on and off. Buddy, did you hear my question? I'd be curious about the answer when it comes to technology in Star Wars. Ozzy and F, I don't know why people assume bigotry just because they don't want to see these agendas. It's nothing to do with Kathleen Kennedy as a woman. It's her failing as the runner of the Star Wars universe. Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, you have a lot of people who will attack a Star Wars movie that has a female protagonist just because it has a female protagonist. Just because they assume that it's some kind of agenda and not that that person was the best person for the job. But yeah, I do believe Anti-Tracker has probably turned off the volume and isn't listening to me. Star Wars universe is just in a cycle of conflict with restructuring of the Republic. If we get a new Republic in Episode 9, it'll be the Fourth Republic. Yeah, they don't know how to write new stories or better stories. Anti-Tracker, my question is, I don't have an issue with the advanced technology we see in Episode 1, 2, and 3 being drastically different from what we see in Episode 4, because once the Empire takes over, it becomes a dystopian and a regressive regime that stifles innovation and even walks back technology in order to better control the society and the culture in the universe. So I think it makes sense, unlike with Star Wars Discovery, where we see advanced technology that doesn't happen in the original series. I think it makes sense for Star Wars. What's your opinion on that? Admiral Saval, although my current body is 28 years old, my soul is actually 2,500 years old. So Admiral Saval believes in reincarnation. Joe B, I can understand how a feminist can get to their ideas, but it's like they create their worldview with only half the picture. Again, I think it's both sides. Shout out to Asher becoming a lore master. The prequels were the end of a golden age, he says. I don't think we see drastically more modern technology in the prequels. We just see another design philosophy. It's a big universe. Okay. You, Anti-Tracker, wrong. Okay, you want to continue to expand on that, good buddy? Anti-Tracker, the Empire would be at the same or better tech. I disagree. Unlike the New Republic, the Empire goes out of its way to streamline everything. They want to make as much as possible, as cheap as possible, as many as possible. They don't try to make advanced weaponry. We don't even see that until the First Order. And so, because of that, I think that that caused a regression. And I think you can clearly see that in the movies. We'll probably be ending this sometime shortly, guys. Though, give me your opinions. To me, the prequels have aged pretty well. Ewan McGregor is my hero. I don't like the arc of the original series. I don't think the story was... I think the story could have been told a lot better. But this is in retrospect. At the time, I didn't mind. I even liked the third, episode 3. I thought it was really well done. And then I watched Red Letter Media and I realized I was an idiot. Ed Appleberry. This is what I've been inviting Anti-Tracker to. I think that I've invited Anti-Tracker. We're going to be doing another simulcast. We'll probably talk about this during that time, I'm sure. Because we did pretty well in the simulcast. A lot of people liked it. Anti-Tracker. Had 100 to 200 years gone by, sure, but in 20 years, I doubt it, especially considering that the Death Star was new tech in Episode 4. The Death Star isn't even new technology. It's just taking existing concepts in different direction. It's a giant lightsaber crystal inside a Death Star. That's true. Yeah, I don't know how innovative it was, if I'm being honest. And by the way, I'm about to turn on that, so you're going to hear something in the background. Let me know if it's too distracting. Let me know, let me know. Do you think Jar Jar should come back? No. No. Jar Jar is dead and should stay dead. Tech was better in the core worlds because they were better developed. Out on the Rim, things weren't as developed, so things was worn and crappy. That's very Firefly-ish, but it's consistent with Expanded Universe. I don't know if that's the way it was meant to do it. I don't even know if you could say that that is how the world worked. But in the Clone Wars, in the expanded universe, yes. But yeah, we're probably going to end soon, too. I think, hey, Anti-Trekker, are you doing a show? Let me put this in. Anti-Trekker, are you doing a show today? Death to Jar Jar. Laura, how much hope do you have for episode 9? Not a lot. I don't have really any major hope for episode 9, and let me tell you why. I don't know if it's salvageable. I think J.J. Abrams could make a really good movie. I don't know if he can salvage it. We only ever saw military tech. The civilian tech might have remained the same or got better over the whole Civil War. Remember, we only saw the military stuff. Did we only see the military stuff? I guess. Yo, be honest. At Tentacle Pinnacle Modesty. Oh, that's not even to me. You don't have to argue with gut, just like hearing sci-fi news. Okay. Anti-Trekker, I do not know how old you are, talking to Tentacle Pinnacle, but I will tell you things were much more progressive in the 70s than you seem to remember. All in the Family, Charles Angels, SNL, Aliens. And yes, I will be doing a stream in a little bit. What time, Anti-Trekker, is the question. Do you think there is something hiding in the unexplored space that could rival the Empire? There is in the expanded universe. I think it could stay that way. I don't know if it will stay that way, but I think that it could stay that way. But yeah, we're going to be ending it pretty shortly. If you guys have any questions or anything you want to talk about before we get off. The only civilian place we saw was Cloud City. Yeah, that's true. I mean, Cloud City seemed pretty advanced, though. Anti-Trekker, as soon as I... Can I have some lunch, Anti-Trekker? I would absolutely love some lunch, buddy. Can I come over and get some? Alright, guys, I guess we're going to end it here. I will be doing a Geek Breakdown tonight where we are going to be analyzing and putting good old Captain Archer on blast. He's got some things to answer for. So definitely come on tonight. Hang out. Have a good time. Guys, I'm going to see you on the next Lore Reloaded.
And get ready for the new channel.
Yeah, let's dance.
See you on the
Dance.
next. See you on the next.
You gotta get in frame.
Reloaded and maybe Lord Destroyer. Maybe.
Come on, dance. Dance, woman.
Dance.